Segment 3, Gold and Black Live. Want to thank our sponsors, Triple X and State Farm agent Trent Johnson. Want to thank Mike Carmen for pulling off the side of the road on the way back from Wisconsin to join the show. He's within 30 miles of Lafayette, so that's a good thing. But Mike and Tom, we'll start with men's basketball. Certainly another walk in the park. We're kind of laughing about that with the Purdue men winning last night in Madison. The Purdue women had a crazy win as well over the Badgers, a few miles, about 4 hours north of where you were, Mike, last night. But put that a little bit in perspective, just because Purdue did have the outright championship. I don't know if it sounds like the team didn't know it prior to the start of that game against the Badgers, but still a big win to get the job done and come out of Madison with a win and maybe a change, and brought up the confidence level of this team.
No, you're right. The players didn't know, but Matt Painter did ask, I think at halftime, who had won the game, and he was told, and he didn't tell the players. So, and I don't know if that would have mattered or not in the big picture, but it's for them. They needed to win the game just so they could say we got the outright championship. They're able to celebrate it on their own terms with a victory. So that was good. And I think a win like that, where again you didn't shoot the ball well again from perimeter on the road, and Wisconsin's not a great basketball team this year, but it's always a tough environment, and that's the kind of win that can push you into the postseason and at least give you a little bit of a foundation as you go to the Big Ten tournament now, feeling a little bit better about yourself. Whenever whoever they play in that first game next Friday, and still got Illinois on Sunday, which I think they want to finish off the home portion of this schedule on a positive note, and being able, I don't know if they're going to pass out their hats and their T-shirts, Big Ten champs and stuff like that, but you don't want to do something like that after a loss. So this team's still motivated to go get it, and some good individual performances. Good to see Fletcher Loyer kind of get back his mid-range game going again. Changing the starting lineup with Mason and Brandon Newman going in. Newman played very well defensively in the first half and had a steady pace about him, and that was a positive. I think to see, and they got contributions from up and down the board. Maybe not a lot of double-digit scorers, but they had enough contributions from a David Jenkins, from Ethan Morton. He missed a free throw late, but he hit 2 threes earlier in the game. So this is kind of the team that we've seen when they're at their best. They get a lot of contributions from different people, and that was the case last night. And hitting 9 of 10 free throws in the last 3 minutes on the road is a big deal.
Yeah, Mike, just since I'm a guy who likes to look around the corner like most people, what does Purdue need to do, you think? And I know there's a lot of things out of their control, but I want you to sort of hypothesize, what do you think Purdue needs to do to maintain that number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament?
Well, I think you win. I mean, you win Sunday against Illinois, and then I think you win at least a couple games in the Big Ten tournament. And a lot of it's going to be dictated to what happens around you, too. Does Alabama lose? Does Houston lose? Does, Kansas got a very difficult Big 12 tournament to navigate? And, and what does UCLA do? I think Purdue's resume, who they've beaten, when they've beaten them, where they've beaten teams, still stands out. At least if you get to the semifinals, I think they'll be in pretty good shape. And definitely you get to the finals, I think they'll be a lock for a number 1 seed. It's just a matter where they fall on the line, whether they're I think they'd have to win the Big Ten tournament to have a chance at the number 1 overall seed. And I think that would probably take Alabama and Kansas potentially losing in their conference tournaments for that to happen. But that process happened so late on Sunday that the bracket's going to be pretty well set before the Big Ten championship game tips off. But they'll have some variations of whatever brackets they want to go with, depending on who wins and loses those games on Sunday. But they've got to win some games here, and see what happens.
Don't you think, Mike, just a win against Illinois and one win in the Big Ten tournament, no matter what anybody else does, shouldn't that be enough to keep Purdue on the one line?
Should be enough, but again, tell me what Kansas is going to do. Tell me what UCLA is going to do. Tell me what Alabama is going to do. Because a lot of this is a byproduct. You can do what you need to do, but some of it also what happens the last weekend with some of those other teams. And that could be the difference between, to me, there's 5 teams in the race for number 1 seed. One of those teams is going to get left out, but what's going to be the criteria for that to happen? And you don't want to give the committee a reason not to put you in that spot. And that's why I think, getting to the semifinals at least makes you feel good that you'll be a number 1 seed.
Yeah. The opportunity, even as a 2 seed, I know that Purdue fans don't want that to happen, but if that even happens, could present a interesting path to Louisville. And again, you explained this well offline, but the last thing Purdue fans or anybody wants to do, anybody in the country wants to do, is count wins in the NCAA tournament. I understand that, but if you get to the Sweet 16, you could, and you're a 2 seed, that might put you in a possibility of being in Louisville. Explain that a little bit if Alabama ends up being the 1 seed and how all that works. I know we're getting deep in the weeds, but that's kind of what we do here. So that's
well, I mean, it's all based on geography and where you fall on the seed line. Like
right.
Alabama right now would be the number 1 overall seed. So actually they get to pick what regional and first and second rounds they want to go to. Most teams, all teams will pick the closest region, not only from a travel perspective, but to help their fans get there. The only coach that I would think that would never pick somebody somewhere close would have been John Thompson from Georgetown. He'd love to have his team. He loved to have his teams out west. Yeah. And so he would have picked Seattle in a heartbeat. Yeah. But that, and they just go right down the list. So Alabama picks Louisville, then Houston picks or doesn't pick, they get assigned. Kansas, they get assigned. Whoever I'm drawing a blank on the fourth.
Well, UCLA, if UCLA, yeah.
But yeah, let's say Purdue ends up being the first number 2 on the line, which would be the 5th overall seed. They're going to be placed in the closest region to them, and that would be Louisville. So therefore, if they're a number 1 seed and not the first overall number 1 seed, they're going to get assigned the closest regional. And if Louisville's taken by Alabama, then they're going to most likely New York or Las Vegas. Outside shot at Kansas City, but that's kind of a little bit how that process works, and they just go right down the line. Actually, I know back in the day they used to have just a computer program pop up on their screen that tells you how many miles it is from West Lafayette to wherever these locations are, and so that's how they do it. So if you want Purdue and Louisville right now, the best course or best chance for them would probably be the number 1, 2 seed of the group.
Yeah, interesting stuff.
Mike, any 1 or 2 red flags remaining for you with this team?
Oh yeah, I mean, they're not shooting the ball well from the perimeter. I mean, I think the last 5 games are 23 and 93 maybe from 3-point range. They're just, and they are getting open looks because of the double teams that are coming to Zach Edey. These are not forced threes. These are not threes that guys are closing out on them, because Purdue does move the ball pretty well. So when Zach does get it out to an open player, either that guy's shooting or he's finding somebody else that's open. My issue with the threes is sometimes they take them too quick in the shot clock. Is that the best shot you can get? Is that the best person to take the shot? Can you move the ball a little bit more to move the defense? Because Wisconsin was cheating, as I say, on the backside with their defender. They were anticipating the pass coming to Zach Edey, and they were trying to intercept it. They were trying to get there at the same time the ball got there, and it worked a couple times for them. But Purdue also ran a play in the second half where the ball got inside to Edey, and he found first for the dunk on the backside. And I thought Purdue had a chance to do that a little bit more to kind of tell Wisconsin to back off. But 3-point shooting is a concern. As that Fletcher Loyer got going a little bit last night, but that was more of a mid-range game for him. And I know shooting 2-pointers is not the thing to do in basketball nowadays, but Purdue is 20 of 29 from 2-point range. And I know it's kind of a slow bleed to get a lot of points shooting, making twos, but I think they can take you to the finish line, especially if you're struggling from three. And I'd like to see Purdue, when they know they're struggling from three, okay, get some 2-pointers, get it to Zach, get it to somebody else, run some plays that kind of get you in the middle of the lane or around the free throw line. And you've got some good shooters there with David Jenkins and Fletcher Lawyer. Braden Smith's an excellent shooter from those distances. Just try to live and survive on that a little bit until maybe you can get a couple threes to go down. But they're rebounding well. You know, the turnovers, I think they had 12 last night. And their defense was better, even though Wisconsin's not a juggernaut offensively. So there's still a lot of things that they're doing well. But as everyone knows, when you don't shoot well, you're perceived to be playing not very well.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case. And I think Purdue has a lot of things going in its favor, but they're going to have to hit some 3-point shots next week in Chicago and in the NCAA tournament to really go far.
Yeah. Do you think, you know, with Edey only getting 9 shots, now I understand had he converted on the first 2 possessions, which I didn't see because of television issues, that he'd had 11 shots at that point and had 3-point plays. But is there a number there? I mean, do you have to get him 12, 13 shots in some ways? Does he need to have, is he going to need to have a 35-17 game at some point in that tournament, whether it be the Big Ten tournament or the NCAA tournament for Purdue to get where it wants to get to?
Well, he'll need a 35-17 game if nobody else is doing anything offensively. And the beauty of this team is they do, when they're right, they get contributions up and down the lineup, and that's what happened last night. Now there was not a bunch of double-digit scores, but there was enough off the bench. Ethan Morton had 7. David Jenkins had two jumpers that he hit. Trey Kaufman-Renn, we're seeing more and more of him with Zach Edey down low, and I think that's working well for Purdue right now. So as long as you're getting contributions from other places, you don't need 35 and 17 from Zach.
Yeah.
I think I did come up with the stat last week that Purdue is undefeated when Edey shoots less than 10 field goals.
Yeah.
So it's but he can be effective as a passer too, as a distributor, and that's he's going to have to do that a lot as well. But you'd like to have Zach probably get a few more touches, and Wisconsin wasn't going to let him score. I mean, they were going to foul him and make him go to the free throw line, and he started 1 for 6, so the strategy was working. But he made the ones at the end that counted.
Yeah, and I think it is a situation too where you've got to, you got to hit on all cylinders at the right time, and that part is clear. All right, well, and I want to ask Tom a question about the combine. I want to go back to you, Mike, just because nobody knows Purdue women's basketball better. I know you didn't really have a chance to watch. Well, maybe you did have a chance to watch a little bit of their game.
It was on the big screen in the Kohl Center the last
I was
minute of the
say,
game.
Purdue double dipped Wisconsin last night, but are they safely in your opinion?
Yeah, I think they are. I think they're in. It doesn't matter. I don't think it matters what happens in the Iowa game, to be honest. They might get beat by 30. They may take him to the wire. They'll play hard and they'll have a good showing, but I think they're in. I think they've done enough. They have enough quality wins. They lost 2 games this year out of their control. The Michigan State game obviously was canceled for those reasons, and then the Vegas tournament, they only got 1 game out of that. So they would have been going into last night or going into Thursday, they would have had 20 wins. They would have been 20-9. And I know 20 wins is not the standard bearer anymore, but it looks good when you have 20 wins. And they've made progress in year 2. They're in a better standing in the Big Ten. They're 7th instead of 9th. They win a game in the Big Ten tournament. So they're going to be in. They're not going to have a great seed in the NCAA, but this year was all about getting in the NCAA tournament for Katie and this group. And now this is when you really push the thing forward, because you go out in the portal and get some players, and then you've got a good recruiting class coming in. And this, the next year is when you got to take another step. You got to challenge for a top 4 spot in the Big Ten. And, a lot of it is, again, dictated on what happens around you, who's coming back in the other Big Ten schools and all that. She still has work to do from a talent standpoint, but the progress is there, and I think on Selection Sunday they'll be going somewhere to play somebody, and that was the whole goal when the year started.
Yeah, Tom, a busy recruiting weekend this weekend for Ryan Walters and company in West Lafayette, but also you got Pro Day next week. Give us a little bit of insight on what you see from that. Not only recruiting, but the guys that are going to be trying to show off what they can do in West Lafayette for next week.
Yeah, Jalen Graham worked out in Indianapolis on Thursday, and his numbers didn't glow. Not a big surprise. I've always asked people what type of a pro he could be, and there was always some question just about his overall athletic ability. He didn't do well in the broad jump. His 40 time was okay. Just didn't come off as a real explosive athlete. He's got the instincts. Mike knows that. I mean, the guy has a nose for the ball and always seems to make plays. Never came off the field hardly at all last year. Has good football intelligence too, but I'll be surprised if he gets drafted. If he does, it'll be late. And we still have Boilermakers like Aiden O'Connell, Payne Durham, and Corey Trice and Charlie Jones to work out in Indianapolis. I know Aiden O'Connell was speaking at the podium on Friday. I think Saturday is the day he works out. A lot of intrigue with Aiden, of course. Will he get picked? I bet he looks good in these drills. He's not going to run well. We all know that, but I bet he spins it as well as anybody in Indianapolis. Payne Durham's the guy I think a lot of people are very interested in too. Somebody described him as a clunky athlete, and I thought that was sort of an apt description. Not the most fleet of foot, but as Mike knows too, he's awfully productive, right? He always seemed to be open and make touchdown catches. He did very well in the Senior Bowl too. So he may be the first Boiler off the board. Corey Trice probably isn't going to run very well, most people think. And Charlie Jones is another X Factor guy, right? He may be a late round pick. It's going to be fun to see how he runs and tests overall, and if he's healthy, right?
Yeah.
Because I got the sense he never was 100% last year at all. He hardly even practiced between Saturdays. So that was one reason why I think he skipped his Senior Bowl. I was told it was because of a toe injury. I'm sure his agent probably told him just to skip it. So we'll see how he looks in Indianapolis. Then, of course, Alan, like you said, March 9th, next Thursday, those Boilermakers supposed to be in West Lafayette for Pro Day. So they'll get a chance to sort of redo some things that they may want to redo. They're probably not going to do every drill, but some guys are probably pick and choose things they want to do that maybe they didn't excel at in Indianapolis.
Yeah. Tom, do you think, with the Combine and the Pro Day being so close together, could you see some Purdue players just skipping the Pro Day altogether?
Some could, Mike. I'm led to think or believe most of them should be there, but who knows, right? You make a good point. From just 3 or 4 days later to turn around and do it all over again seems kind of silly. I was trying to think when Brom usually had his Pro Day, because typically they were already started spring football by now, so Pro Day occurred during spring football.
It was usually closer to spring break.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
which is this is next week too, right? Because spring break's the 11th, right? So
it's usually closer to spring break.
That's a good point. Again, we'll see who does show up among the 5 guys that are in Indianapolis. We'll see some of the other non-combine guys there, like Reese Taylor, I'm sure will be there. I know Bryce Hampton will be there as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's always kind of a fun event, and see how guys test out and as they sort of churn toward the NFL draft, which is going to be in Kansas City this year.
Yeah, going to be interesting. Kansas City this year, Detroit next year for the draft. How about that? So that will be part of the show. All right, guys, thanks so much, Mike. Have a safe rest of your trip down. Tom, when we'll look forward to seeing you next week as well when you're here for Pro Day as well. So guys, thanks so much. Want to thank XXX and State Farm agent Trent Johnson. Had to call Trent today because we got a little ding in my wife's car, and we're working on that. But Trent, always good at taking care of that at trentismyagent.com. And I think Tom and I are going to be at the Triple X next week. And I'm going to guess we'll invite Carm, see if he'll want to come. I don't know if he'll join us, but if he does, we'll be there.
We got to get the corner booth.
Well,
when you
day?
got three of us blowhards together, we need space.
Well, what day are you talking about?
I don't know. I think Wednesday, I think, is what we're talking about. So it would be right before you take off for well, it'd be a day or two before you take off for Chicago, I suppose. We'll see. We'll see if we can get on your calendar. All right, guys. Thanks so much. I want to thank Gordon Jackson and the good folks at WLFI, and of course, Mary and others too, for all they do to make Golden Black Live happen. We will not have shows due to the tournament here in the next couple of weeks, but we will have one, I think, before that spring game, and probably one or two during spring ball. So check local listings. I know that it's a highlight of Tom and Mike's time with us to be able to do that, but we appreciate that. So be back when we're back, and everybody else have a great rest of the weekend, and we'll look forward to more from Golden Black Live.